I'm here in the Garden of Gethsemane, the remnants of the ancient olive trees where Jesus himself prayed with his disciples. He was often here. In fact, Judas knew just where to find him. Wait a minute. No, I'm not in the Garden of Gethsemane. I'm in Paradise, California, outside the house that I live in. And we are in one of the greatest, amazing experiences that we have ever been in, the lockdown of COVID-19. We were supposed to be having Good Friday services at the Oroville Congregational Church. I was supposed to be standing behind their pulpit, and you were perhaps going to be there to worship along with us. Well, we're not. We're here meeting in this way, and thank you for tuning in. I want to say hi to the people of Oroville. I want to say hi to the folks up in Montana at the school there, and I also want to say hi to all my friends on Facebook. Would you join me as we take a moment to reflect on one of the stories of God's Word that did happen in an olive grove just like this one? It was Thursday night. The Last Supper had taken place, and now the last miracle before the cross was going to take place. Jesus had spent the night in prayer out in the garden, asking his Father to take the cup from him, but the cup was not removed. The betrayer came with his mob, gave him a kiss on the cheek, and Jesus was arrested. That's when a moment took place that all four of the Gospels record: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now, Matthew and Mark don't record anything striking about the story. They don't tell us who did it. They just tell us that someone standing by drew a sword and cut off the ear of the high priest's servant. Luke tells us a little more information. Luke, the doctor, tells us it was his right ear that was sliced off. It's John that tells us the details. John chapter 18 and verse 10. Simon Peter, therefore, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest slave and cut off his right ear, and the slave's name was Malchus. Now, if we go back to Luke, he tells us one more detail. Luke is the one. Dr. Luke is the one who tells us that the ear was put back on. The ear was healed. Matthew, Mark, and John do not tell us that detail. But John tells us who it was who wielded the sword. It was Peter with a sword in the garden. Hey, wait a minute. That sounds a little bit like a Clue answer, doesn't it? Miss Marple with the candlestick in the library. Peter is in the garden. He wants to set Jesus free, and he wields his sword. Not a very good attack for a fisherman. He hurts the high priest's servant. Now, why is this story important? Two reasons I'd like to tell you today. Number one, Jesus is kind. He's kind to his enemies. He preached that in the Sermon on the Mount. If your enemy is in need, feed him. Be kind to your enemies and do good to those who despitefully use you. See, that's the way Jesus is. If you've seen Jesus, you've seen the Father. That's the way God is. God is love, and his final act before they wrap his arms in rope is to put an ear back on the servant of the man that he is arresting him. The second reason it's important is because Jesus said many times after his parables, "Let he who has ears to hear, let him hear." You know, these little appendages on our head are really important. You wouldn't be able to hear me very well if you didn't have them. If you don't believe me, just cup your hand around your ear. You'll hear just a little louder. These are sound collectors, and without our outer ear, our middle ear and our inner ear would not be able to do the job that they do. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, the most famous prayer of the Israelites is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength." And Jesus said, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." Without ears, you can't hear, and you need ears to listen. You need ears to listen to each other, and you need ears to listen to God himself. On this Good Friday, I hope you'll take the Bible, open it up to the Passion story, and read it verse by verse. And I'd like to invite you to read it out loud so it sounds, reverberate wherever you are. And come to the cross with me this Good Friday evening. And may God bless you. Until later, it's COVID-19. Take care of yourself and be safe.